love me.
Hey, glad you could make it. Come on in. We got a few final notes on throwing knives. Go ahead and have a seat. We got a few final notes on throwing knives and tomahawks off of your horse. Practice is the key, but a certain kind of practice. Sometimes the worst thing that can happen with all these Wild West skills, probably any skill, is that you get it right doing it the wrong way, because that's called a bad habit. You know, you solidify, you just keep trying to do it that wrong way better and better, and you start missing and missing, you work harder at it, and you've got a bad habit it's hard to get out of. So if you can find an expert to work with, that's the best solution. Most of us can't do that though. But the best violinist in the world, that Itzhak Perlman, I think is his name, I read how he practiced. He practiced all the time as a kid, but never alone. He always had an expert watching over him to make sure he didn't develop a bad habit. We don't have that luxury, most of us. So it's up to you to practice hard and to use your brain. If something isn't working, it isn't working, maybe it's not right. You have to use your brain to force yourself to try something different. And if you look at my instructions in the prior episodes, or if you find an expert knife thrower, everything you do on the ground applies to being on a horse. If you freeze that moment the knife hits the target, freeze that moment, it'll tell you whether it was underspun or overspun. And you can adjust your spot, adjust how you're throwing, adjust something. But we can't practice these things and just do it over and over again, because that creates bad habits. What we have to do is we have to use our brain, and if things aren't going well that day, just quit, come back the next day. Use your brain to figure out why it didn't stick last time and what you might be doing wrong, and look over the instructions you've been given, look over the instructions again, because maybe now with more experience throwing, maybe you'll see those instructions in a different light. If you're a knife thrower on the ground, you would know that you might throw your knife at half a spin. And a lot of people start with half a spin and learn how to throw the knife, get their style down with half a spin. But you can't do that on the back of your horse, because that means you move closer to the target. If you're at half a spin range, your horse is in range for bounces of your knife. Yeah, Gypsy agrees with me. That knife doesn't stick, it bounces back, and it'll go right into his legs. And you may have seen in some of our other videos, I've got my 4-year-old grandson throwing knives off the back of the horse. I'm leading him, put him in just the right spot. I say up and forward to tell him when to throw, and that works good. We don't do that very often because he's throwing at half a spin, and the horse and grandson's legs are in range of having a bounce back. So we only do that when we're going to film it, and we don't practice it at all. And he takes orders real good. He goes up and forward when it's time to throw, and it sticks. So don't throw it half a spin. The other issue is throwing at a spin and a half. At the last contest, I had one of the competitors come up and said, "You throw it a spin and a half?" And I go, "No, I haven't even tried it." And they said, "Well, you better start practicing that, because we're all going to get good enough. We're going to need more stages in the contest." Well, I spent all this summer, all winter and the first part of the summer, learning to throw at spin and a half. That's not in the rules yet, spin and a half, and I don't know what the proper distance would be. All I know is the proper distance for myself. I've about got it down. I'm not good at it at a trot or a lope. I've spent all this time working at a walk to learn and working at walking on the ground by myself, and walking with my horse. So I don't know what your distances would be or what a fair distance is, but I'll tell you that my line of travel is 14 feet from my target for a spin and a half. And I throw at 16 feet. The target is pointed at the line of travel at 16 feet. So I throw at 16 feet. Of course, you're throwing with the blade for spin and a half. And part of where you feel comfortable throwing and part of where you're going to hold your knife is going to depend on the shape and the weight distribution of the knife. I found that I have to slow this knife down to throw at 16 feet. So I put my thumb on top and I grab a hold of a big portion of the blade. You're going to find that any mistake you have been making at one spin and getting away with is going to be amplified at spin and a half, so you have to go back and fix that mistake. Your point of release on your knife, which means your distance from the target, is even more important than it is at one spin. And your form of throwing is more important. You know, you'll have a problem with the knife spinning too fast, and you'll have a problem with the knife spinning not fast enough. I've paid particular attention, like I always do, to my grip. I'm gripping this Bowie knife here at the start of the clip blade. I've got my thumb on top. I cock it back, and something I've discovered is to get everything nailed down really precise, I have to concentrate on how I start that knife forward. And the way I found to start this knife forward is kind of a big knife. To get this knife going, I push with my thumb right off the bat. I just don't bring it over and ignore it. I got to push with my thumb, and my ending position of my hand and arm are also important, I've discovered. So I'm coming up, got my line coming up to the minimum distance marker, and I set my target back a couple feet. So I ride on the same line for everything, same minimum distance markers, just the target is back farther. So I approach the minimum distance marker, shift my focus to the target, cock it back, push with my thumb, release with full extension, and my ending position is like this. My fingers pointed towards the ground and my thumb is pointed at that target. What that does is that assures that I don't release it right here and just let it slide. You let that knife just slide out of your hands, and guess what? It's not going to spin as fast as you're used to it spinning. So, I got my grip, my spot is coming up, cock it back, push forward with my thumb, and my ending position is right like this. And if I do that, I know that I release that knife with a proper trajectory and proper initiative to spin, and it's got a good chance of spinning, good chance of sticking. Now, when I told you about my Tomahawks, and actually these Tomahawks don't want to go spin and a half. When I stick them like this, that's the only time I've ever shattered a handle, because that handle wants to keep going for some reason. I don't know why that is. I don't know what to say about it. But with the Tomahawks, I told you at one spin, if I held them correctly, touched my back shoulder with the back of that blade, and followed through, that it would spin properly and stick almost every time, and that's true. I wish I could say this with a spin and a half of the knife, that it sticks every time. On a good day, it sticks all the time. On a bad day, I got to work at it quite a bit to get it to stick. So, good luck with spin and a half. It's a lot of fun. I wouldn't worry about it until you've got one spin down very well at walk, trot, and lope. Don't worry about rushing any of this. I spent the first couple years at a walk. Maybe I've saved you some time with these instructions. You've probably heard of a fairly new style of throwing. It was new to me. Maybe it's an ancient style, I don't know. And a lot of you guys are getting good at it, and that's no spin. Throwing with no spin. I don't know what to say about no spin when you're riding a horse. Actually, I don't know what to say about no spin at all. I know nothing about it. No spin, if you could throw a knife, no spin off of a horse, then it would solve a lot of problems. I have no idea whether it's possible. So, good luck with that. I don't know anything about that. Gypsy and I were staying at a friend's house, getting ready for the mounted throwing contest last year. Hey Matt, I was staying at Matt and Mobley's house. And we've been doing great. And he was getting calm and loping and trotting, and he was just on the money, doing great. And then Matt and I went out and chased cows. Matt showed me how to chase cows with my horse, or tried to. Wasn't very good at it because that's not what I do. But a couple times, you know, the cows would scoot away, and boys put the spurs, and we went chasing them cows, and that wasn't the right way to do it. But it was fun, and we got out and ran and tried to outrun them cows. And then I went back to throwing knives and expected him to lope and be nice and calm like he had been. It was a whole week before I got him calmed down again. So if you got your saddle horse that's nice and calm, you're throwing knives off of him, he's nice and calm, you might think twice before you go out and let him run as fast as he'll go, because horses like to do that, and it might be hard to calm them down for the contest. All right, thanks for coming. If you think about it, like these videos and subscribe. We'd like to send them all to you. It's free, and you don't have to watch them all. You can ignore them if you want to. But we're having a good time, and good luck with throwing knives and tomahawks off your horse.